Hi Revolutionaries, and welcome to this week's Hello Revolutionary video blog. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Hayley Bozowski. I am a startup business coach for female entrepreneurs, and I strongly believe that success starts between the ears, and it's all about getting in the success mindset. And each week I aim to unpack some of the mental blocks and traps that can trip us up along the way to achieving our goals and visions, and I'll be teaching you some of the best techniques that entrepreneurs have used around the world in order to achieve global success at whatever it is that they're doing. So this week I'm going to be talking about the topic of perfectionism, and as high achievers or people who hope to be high achievers, I'm sure that there is quite a large percentage of you which may be grappling with the perfectionism trait. And you may even be currently holding it as a badge of honour. And today I'm going to view it from a slightly different perspective and start to actually unpack why it's actually debilitating you in many ways and preventing your dreams from getting off the ground. And we're also going to look at how the perfectionist trait zaps all the joy out of your work. And as entrepreneurs who have this amazing opportunity to start our own businesses, we may as well be creating businesses that we love to work within. Otherwise, we can go and work for someone else and let them deal with all the hassle of starting up their own business. So if you are creating your own business, let's make sure you enjoy it. And one of the best ways to do that is to abolish your perfectionist trait. So let's look now at what some of the common ways that perfectionism can trip you up. And I've got a few notes here, so I'm going to be referring back to them. But I want to recommend a great book, the Elizabeth Gilbert. I've mentioned it before in one or two of my other blog posts, but Big Magic. If you are a creative or an entrepreneur or somebody who's starting something off the ground, maybe you don't necessarily associate with the entrepreneur label yet, but if you are creating something, whether that be a piece of art or an idea, creating an idea in your head, this book is a really great resource for you. So I do encourage you to buy it and to read it and to make lots of notes and to absorb it. It really is good. So I'm going to be referring to some of that today. In this book, Elizabeth Gilbert tells the story of how the great American novelist Robert Stone once joked that he had the worst two possible traits for a writer. He said that he was lazy and that he was a perfectionist, and that this actually prevents him from getting a lot of really good work out into the world. And Elizabeth Gilbert actually in the book really argues for the case that in order to be successful, you need to become a determined half-ass. And what she means by half-ass is that if you are striving for perfection, nothing is ever going to meet the mark, because particularly in this online world, nothing is beyond criticism. And any marketer will tell you that if you create a brand where 50% of the people really love it, really get it, they're alongside you, they love what you have to offer, but then the other percentage really dislike what you have to offer and critique it quite a lot, actually you've developed a really good brand. And you'll notice this in journalism too. A lot of the most captivating headlines are ones that are quite Marmite-inducing. For my American audience, Marmite is a spread that we have in the UK, and their kind of selling point is you either love it or hate it. And that's often what generates the best responses. So if you are creating something, your role is to not create something for everyone and to actually induce criticism in a certain sector of the market and create brand loyalty to those who you're really striving for. But the message is that nothing you put out online will ever be beyond criticism. So perfectionism is unattainable. If you are waiting to put your value out into the world and waiting until it's perfect, until you put your value out into the world, not only will you never put it out there because perfection is unattainable, but you will also miss loads of opportunities as you go along the way. You may have heard of the multiple discoveries theory. What that means is that if you're thinking about something and you're currently working and creating on something, what's led your thoughts to that place in order to create it is that you've picked up on nuances within society that's going around at the moment. The multiple discoveries theory also suggests that if you've picked up on those nuances, somebody else will. Somebody else will have picked up on the same cues around the world at the moment and picked up on the need and picked up on the niche and picked up on a new product that needs to fill that niche. And they will also be creating or discovering it at the same time as you. And by waiting until your product is perfect, you're actually missing out on a lot of opportunities, and you might be missing out on your only opportunity. So really do get your product out to market and test it and let it run and put out beta phases if you need to. And if you think of Steve Jobs, when he had a vision for the personal computer, it was massive, it was huge. His vision for what it could achieve even hasn't been realized now with our computers nowadays. But what he put out there was far from perfect by his own admission. But actually what it did is it built a market of people who hadn't even thought about home computing. And it got them interested in it, and it created a market and an audience for which he could then sell his slightly closer to perfect models into. Not only does perfectionism stop people from completing their work, it also stops people from even starting their work. A lot of perfectionists often decide in advance that their work is never going to attain the level that they want it to achieve, and therefore they don't even embark on the journey of putting it out. And I've noticed this about a lot of female entrepreneurs who are coming to me with ideas. Quite often the question around what's the reason you haven't started this in the past is along the lines of, well, I could never make it quite what I had in my mind. And I think that instead of thinking about it in this way, the best way to think about it is what I'm putting out there moving people's thinking? Is it generating a desire for the perfect product that I have in my head? Is it creating a market? Is it generating awareness? Not necessarily, is it perfect? And another way to also think about it as well is that a lot of what we create isn't finished products. I mentioned this earlier about putting out beta models, but actually a lot of what you can do can be refined. If you create an online course, you can redevelop it 6 months down the line or a year down the line and launch the new training to your current clients. And people are actually really receptive of those modifications as you go and as you develop later down the line. The other flip side of perfectionism is that it zaps all joy out of your work. Maria Shiver said, perfectionism doesn't make you feel perfect, it makes you feel inadequate. And perfectionism and excellence are often used synonymously, but actually they're very different. Excellence is about drawing out your potential that's within and trying to get the best out of it. Perfectionism, on the other hand, is fear dressed up in fancy shoes and a mink jacket, telling you over and over and over again, you're not good enough and you never will be. One of them's healthy, one of them's not so healthy. You may have heard the expression, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land in stars. And a great way to gauge whether your perfectionism is actually on board with you or working against you is to assess how you'd feel when you land in the stars. When you miss the moon and you land in the stars, what's your perception of that? Do you see that as a great result that you can then use to leverage to move on to bigger and better and greater things? Or do you see that as failure? And then most importantly, how do you maintain your self-esteem when you hit the stars and not the moon? Can you maintain a healthy self-esteem, or do you berate yourself? And a good way to deal with that is we looked at this in the blog post on failure, but it is to restrict the failure to that iteration, to that attempt, to that try. Take out the key learnings, celebrate your success, and see life as a journey of experiments. Keep retrying, regroup, and then retry again. And assess whether you lash out at people or whether you're actually able to maintain a good level of self-esteem when you hit the stars rather than the moon. So that's a quick top tips on dealing with perfectionism. If you are watching this on YouTube, do subscribe to this channel. There's ideas pumped out each week, like I say. If you're on the blog and you're watching our blogs for the first time, do subscribe, and we'll send you them in your inbox before anyone else gets them. And I'll also send out some extra treats as well that people only get who are on the mailing list. So do make sure you sign up. I am also going to be putting a link to Elizabeth Gilbert's book in the blog down below. But why don't you, as a sense of accountability and exercise this week, why don't you use the space below, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on the blog, but comment below, where do you think perfectionism has either held you back from your dreams becoming a reality or zapped the joy out of your current work life? So do comment below. I love hearing your thoughts. We love engaging you. I always promise to respond. So do use this opportunity to ask questions as well if you've got any questions. But that's all for this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, bye-bye.